Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I thought I would talk a little bit about how I approach stretching my supplies when I sit down to craft. This includes making the most of my time and making the most of the products I have, whether they're new or old. So I also am creating some birthday cards. I did a video a few weeks ago. I will link to it here at the top right and at the end of this video. And I talked about how I'm trying to be better at sending out birthday cards. So today is all about birthday. I also have some new tips and tricks I'll be sharing along the way. All right, let's first look at the layering stencils that I'll be using in today's video. I'm a big fan of layering stencils. I use them a lot in videos. Pretty Pink Posh has a great collection of really fun layering stencils with lots of different themes, but their birthday ones are fantastic. And because I struggle with making birthday cards, these make it easier because I can simply change the colors I used and quickly make fun birthday backgrounds. I just pulled all of these layering stencils that I thought I could possibly use today for my birthday cards. I don't use them all, but I use most. And I'm going to show you a fun way to combine them together to get more use from them. Now, this is the one that I use the most today, the Party Hat Stencil. There is one layering stencil set that I didn't get a chance to use today. It's the Streamer Stencil, this one here. Fun for birthday streamers, but you can also turn the stencils and create fun overlapping patterns. So remember, layering stencils you can often get really creative with too. Now, I am, as I mentioned, combining in some older layering stencils. This candle stencil is one of my all-time favorites. I use this in a video. I'll link to it up here in the top right in case you want to find more ideas. And then we also have the Cupcakes, which I've used before, but we'll be using again. So when I sat down to make these cards, I knew I wanted to make multiples, and that's one of the best ways to stretch your time, is to come up with 2-for-1 card ideas. I do a lot of these. You can search on the words 2-for-1 on my blog, and several will show up. Today's is a good example. I'll be doing 2-for-1 cards here and again on the next examples. We're going to start by creating a inked background using these layering stencils. I have light pink cardstock. It's a full sheet of cardstock here. And I'm putting it into the corner of my waffle flower stencil mat. And I'm putting the first layering stencil from the Party Hats set into the corner also. By putting my paper and my stencil in the corner, I know that each time it'll line up. Now I have a piece of Altenew satin tape over there just masking off that edge and also holding it in place. You could do one color over this entire stencil, but I thought I would do kind of a blend of pink, red, orange, and yellow across this. So you'll see me switch colors. I'm using Hero Arts inks today. You could use whatever inks you want. And I'm using Altenew blending brushes, but you can use whatever blending brushes you want. I am putting a lighter amount of color over this first stencil. Usually whatever stencil has the largest openings are the stencils that you want to put the lightest color over, and that's the case here. So now I'm going to take a quick mist of rubbing alcohol, one spray onto that stencil, wipe it with a dry cloth, and I'm quickly able to remove that ink so that I can use this stencil again. Now what I'm doing here is actually stretching this panel. Instead of just coming up with a 6x6 panel, I'm moving the stencil over and then taping it down on the side to mask it, and I will continue the pattern. So we'll have long rows of party hats, and I'll be able to create a bigger card. This will allow me to create a 5x7 card. The 6x6 alone wouldn't be big enough for that, so I am stretching this so I can make a 5x7 card. I will show you another way of stretching your stencils a little later in this video. But now look at, we have this huge area. We could get 2 card panels from this if we wanted to. We could do slimline, but I will be doing 5x7. All right, now it's time for the second stencil, so I'll just put my light pink cardstock back into the corner, take the second stencil, put that in the corner, tape it down to the right so I don't get ink where I don't want it, and this time I'm using a slightly darker color of whatever I inked below it. So again, slightly darker pink, red, orange, and yellows. If you don't have a slightly darker color than you used the first time, just use the same color as before, but a heavier amount. I have these different shades, so I thought I'd go ahead and use them. All All right, I'll do a quick spray with rubbing alcohol, wipe that dry, and then move the stencil over to the next spot. By the way, quick tip, rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle, that you know is rubbing alcohol so you don't actually accidentally use it as water. All you need is one spray on it and a dry cloth, and you can quickly clean a stencil from any ink on it. Now, if you're using something thicker like gels or paste, I do recommend washing that in the sink, but for quick cleanup of ink, rubbing alcohol is really handy. All right, so now it's on to the third stencil, and this time I'm going with the darkest color I can, and this will be the top of the party hats. I also switched to a smaller blending brush just to save time and make it quicker. So as I finish inking this, let's go back to the idea of stretching your supplies. For this example right now, I am literally stretching my stencils to make a bigger panel so that I can use it on bigger card sizes or also to create 2 card panels. Now, that I think is one of the best things you can do, is to create bigger cards or different size cards than you normally do. It's an excellent way to stretch your creativity, to try something new, and it just is sometimes refreshing to create a different card size than you normally do. I know many of you do 5x7 all the time, and I really enjoyed making a couple of those today. All right, so now the fourth and final stencil in the set creates little stars in the background. So I decided to use just yellow ink over these. I think it would be fun to do like a gold glitter gel or something shiny, but I decided to stick with simple inking today. By the way, this fourth and final stencil in this set is stars of different sizes. This stencil could be used alone, another great way to stretch your supplies. Or you can use it with other things, just adding little stars here and there, which you'll see me do later in this video. Okay, so once I'm done with this, we have this fun background, definitely big enough for slimline, but I will be doing 5x7. So first I'll trim this down to be slightly smaller than 5x7 so that I can put it on a white 5x7 card and there'll be a little trim. All right, now I'm not done with this background. I wanted to add some interest to it. And if you look closely at the background here, you'll see that I stamped different sentiments in the openings around the party hats. Not only does this step up my background, but it stretches my supplies by allowing me to use sentiments that maybe I haven't used before. So I went through a bunch of birthday stamp sets from Pretty Pink Posh, and I'll pick and choose little sentiments to stamp in the openings. Now the reason I'm looking through all my Pretty Pink Posh sets is the font is the same in them, so you can mix and match and use them together very easily. This is common for companies to do, and it's beneficial because you know your sentiments will match between sets. This first one is super cute with these little signs that the critters are holding, and you can put different sentiments on the signs. Then we have this Pretty Pink Posh birthday balloons. This has an outline balloon, a solid balloon, and then details that you can stamp on it to create a pattern on that balloon. I hope to use this in the future, but for now I'm just using the little sentiments. So I've placed my background into my MISTI stamping tool. Since it's bigger, I do have to turn it on the side, but that's no problem at all. I've pulled out a bunch of the little sentiments from the different stamp sets, and I'm just placing them into some of the openings on the background. This is a great way to kind of pull the background together a bit more, to kind of fill it, which is helpful for the technique we're going to do in a moment. But I'm just placing these in the open areas. You could overlap the inking, the party hats, but I tried not to, just for a clean look. Now I did this in a video recently, which I'll link here on the top right and in my description below, and I really liked the results, so I thought I'd do it again here. So I placed a bunch of stamps in position, and now I'm inking it up with Hero Art's Granite ink, which is a nice middle gray ink that really works on any color cardstock. So this will give kind of that subtle sentiment stamping around our colorful party hats. I will continue to do this, moving the sentiments to different spots until I'm happy with the results. I used a stamping tool, but I actually think using an acrylic block would be faster for this process. You could do either way. Okay, next I want to die cut a large word at the center of this background, and it'll allow me to do a fun 2-for-1 technique. So I am using the new Pretty Pink Posh Wish stamp set in coordinating die. These are sold separately or together. Pretty Pink Posh has a bunch of sets like this with words like hugs, XOXO, love, and more. I'm using Wish for our birthday card today. And what's neat is the coordinating die lines up with these fun letters, but you can use them separately too. This large word is great for shaker cards, window cards, and more. So I will start by using the coordinating die and placing it right at the center of our background, placed a little bit higher so I'll have room for a sentiment strip underneath it. I'm using my T-ruler to make sure I have it straight. I don't want to mess up at this point. I ran that through my die cut machine, and now we have a background with the letters open, and I have these letters that I will save for my next card. Now I'm going to stop here real quickly, give you another idea. This panel here would be great for a shaker card. You could have little shaker bits inside of those letters. In fact, Pretty Pink Posh has these fun little confetti. They look like sprinkles for a cake. These would be great in a shaker window. I'll link to these below, but I decided not to do a shaker card today. Instead, I'm just going to do setback stamping. First, we need to create our note card, a 5x7 card. What I like to do is take a piece of cardstock and fold it in half at 5.5 inches, and then reinforce that fold line. Then I take my trimmer and I cut it down to be 5x7. I will have some strips left over, which I will save so that I can use to build up any dimension. I like to do that instead of foam tape. So even these small strips will not go to waste. But now we have a 5x7 card base. Now my panel with the window at the center is slightly smaller, so we'll have that nice white trim around the edge. Next, I want to stamp inside of the window that says Wish, and I'll use that fun stamp from the Wish stamp set. So I'm putting my card and the panel into my Misty stamping tool. The panel is not glued on there, just held in place. I will then place the stamp in the window, remove the panel, use Versamark ink to stamp the Wish, and then I will add silver embossing powder. You definitely could color in these cute little images, but I didn't want to add more color to this. There's a lot going on this card already, so I'm just sticking with the simple silver embossing. At this point, you could glue the panel directly onto the card, but I decided I wanted to add some dimension behind it so that the Wish stamping is kind of set back. You could use foam tape to do this or even craft foam, but I chose to use some inexpensive white cardstock. You could use mess up cardstock for this. I just happened to run out of mine. So these pieces are cut to be slightly smaller than our card front panel. You can see that there. While I hold it centered on the back of our panel, I'll flip it over and then use a pencil to trace in just a little bit of the Wish opening. That way I know where I should line up my die. Makes it much easier to try to get that Wish die cut in the same place. Now I will put the die right around the pencil marks we made and run that through our die cut machine. So now I have that Wish window in the same position on the white as I do on our pink inked panel. And I will save those white die cuts for the letters Wish for my next card. I will repeat this process 3 more times, so I have 3 layers of this to glue on the back of our inked panel. Notice how easily it lines up. Again, you could use foam tape here for dimension. I just feel this gives stronger, better results, and it's much less expensive than foam tape. Ironically, I wish I would have done this with a gray cardstock so that gray would show in the openings, allowing the Wish window to stand out a bit more, but maybe next time. I'll talk about that later. All right, so now after I have my 3 layers, I will glue this right onto our card front. And now the Wish stands out a little bit more and that stamping is set back. Again, you could make this a shaker card very easily. All right, here is the completed card. I did add a white heat embossed sentiment strip on gray cardstock right below the word Wish, and that is from the same Wish stamp set. And I added a few silver gems here and there on the background. So with this card, I was able to stretch my supplies in many ways. First, I stretched the stencil background so that I could create a bigger card panel. I also stretched my supplies by using stamp sets, a variety of stamp sets, to add interest onto our background. All those little sentiments. Some of those may never have gotten used, so it's a great way to put them to use. I also stretched my time by doing a technique that will allow me to create 2 cards at once, which I call a 2-for-1. And we'll do that next card now. For this card, we'll use the leftover wish letters. We have the pink layer with the stamping and inking and the leftover white letters, which I'll glue behind the pink ones so we have dimension. So I put 3 white die cut letters behind it. You do not need to do this. I like that added strong dimension, so I chose to do so. But remember, all of these things could be done with really without all the added dimension. All right, after doing that to the letters, you could see that these are very light, and I want to put them on a white background. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm putting a light die cut on a light background is to add a little inking on the edges. I'm using a light pink cardstock, and I find it easiest to do this with a Tim Holtz blending tool with that foam tip. And notice how it stands out more when you have ink around the edges. I also decided to put a little bit of ink over the entire background just to make it a little bit darker, but you can definitely still see the stenciling and stamping that we did on it. But this really makes a big difference to making it stand out. Now for the note card itself, notice I have some white tone-on-tone die cuts. This is a great way to make a simple card stand out. This is the Pretty Pink Posh Birthday Mug Editions. These are meant to go with a mug die set that Pretty Pink Posh has, but I think it's a great set alone. You have layering candles, so you can either do 1 layer, 2 layers, or 3 to get some fun dimension. You've got layering party hats. You have the words that say, "It's your day." Then there are some balloons, birthday cake, stars, and more. So lots of different things here. I chose to use the party hats and the star because I felt like that went along with the stenciling we created. Now here's my background. It's a white note card, and I did all white die cuts on it. And look at that fun dimension. It looks especially good in real life. I wish you could see it better in the video, but it's a great way to step up a simple card design. Now it's time to add the wish letters, and I wanted to get the spacing just right. So I cut a negative space piece here, and I'm just temporarily taping it onto the front of my card, right on top of all of those die cuts. I am putting liquid adhesive, a lot of good strong liquid adhesive on the back of my letters, and I'm placing them into the openings. Now be sure to get a lot of adhesive on this because you want to make sure that it sticks to those layers of die cuts below. You can keep this little template after you take it off with your stamp set. So if you ever want to do this technique again, it's ready. All right, now while I give that some time to dry by putting something heavy on it, let's create a Make a Wish die cut. I die cut this twice from white cardstock and glued it together for dimension. I'm only using the words Make a, and I'll put that right on top of Wish. There is also a stamp that you could use for the Make A that's in that Wish stamp set, but I really like the look of these large cursive white die cuts on top of our letters. All right, I carefully removed that template and I could keep it for the future. And now it's time to add our Make A on top. And that's it. I did add a few little pink pearls here and there just to draw attention to that soft wish word at the center of our card. So this is a great example of stretching your time by making one background so that you can create 2 cards. So in the time that I normally would make 1 card, maybe a little bit more time, I was able to create 2. As I mentioned, I kind of struggle with birthday cards. I don't usually enjoy making them as much. I like unexpected cards more. So by focusing on stretching my time and supplies, I enjoy the process more. I feel more creative and I feel good after making them. And by the way, you could easily change this card up simply by changing the colors you use. And that way you can make a card that best fits the recipient. Also, remember I mentioned that Pretty Pink Posh has other stamps and dies like this. This Hugs one is definitely my favorite. So I can do the same card process using the Hugs and just change up the stencils and the die cuts I use. So I could do little sunshines or flowers for the background and quickly have 2 more cards using the same techniques. All right, let's do a couple more cards, more 2 for 1, but this time we're going to stretch our supplies even more. This is a great way to really put your supplies to use. So once again, I have a piece of cardstock in the corner of my stencil mat, and I'm taping the first of the birthday cake layering stencils into the corner. Notice I have masked off the second row of birthday cakes. I am only inking the top row because I plan to use the other layering stencils along with this one. I am doing really what I did before, just with blue, teal, and green inks. But this time I'm also going all the way to the other end of the cardstock piece. Last time I stopped short. I'm not sure why, but this time I'm going all the way to the end. So I'll be able to create 2 cards from this. One will be 5 by 7 and one will be 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. All right, now it's time to go into the second of the layering stencils for the birthday cakes. Again, I'm doing the same colors that I used below it, but darker. By the way, notice that on all of my cards today, I did my stenciling on a light color of cardstock. I'm guilty of always reaching for white cardstock when I do stenciling, but you don't need to. You can start with a light color. You don't want to go too dark with the cardstock color underneath, because then it'll be hard to see the different colors of ink you put on top. But if you want to see how to stencil over darker color cardstocks, I will link to a video below and up here on the top right with some ideas for that. All right, now to continue on to our background. Remember, I masked off my stencils so that I didn't have many rows of birthday cakes, just the one. Now I'm switching to another layering stencil set, the party hat stencil set I used before. And right below the cakes, I'm doing the party hats. So I am mixing and matching my layering stencils on one card, which is one of the best ways to stretch your supplies. The more you use your supplies, the better value you get from them, and the better you feel about what you're creating and the time and money you spend doing so. So try to think of ways to combine different products together on a card. Now, I started with the top of the party hats because I wanted to get the spacing just right, and I did that with my darkest colors. Now I am masking off the party hat itself, and I'll do light colors over this. Notice I need to put masking tape along the top and the bottom so that I only end up with one row of party hats. By the way, this is Altenew satin tape, which is excellent tape for masking because you can peel it off, wipe it clean, and reuse it. So I was able to minimize how much tape I used during all of this stenciling. All right, I'll wipe that clean and then I'll move this stencil over so I can continue to stretch this background so I'll be able to make 2 cards. Now, I'm not going to show all of the stenciling on this background. It took me about a half hour to do all of this inking, and I didn't think you'd want to watch all of that, but it's the same process for each. Now, below the party hats, I'm doing birthday candles. These are candle layering stencils that have been out for a while and I've used in a video before, and I've used off screen many times. I think they're so much fun to add to cards. Also, I didn't in this video show the inside of these cards and what you can do with them. I ran out of time. But remember, you could do just one single border of candles or party hats along the inside bottom of your card, and it'll make it match the outside perfectly. All right, so I'm going to continue on and do the inking over one row of candles right below our party hats. Then below that, I'll do a row of cupcakes, again, an older layering set. And then I finished it off with a row of cakes along the bottom also. Now I have that star stencil, which was the 4th layering stencil in the party hat set. This is a fun one to use for other things. You don't have to use it as intended. Here I'm moving the stencil around and just adding little ink stars here and there over our background to kind of pull everything together. And I can use that stencil on other cards too. Now I have this large background, and I was able to trim it down to create 2 cards. On the left is a 5 by 7, on the right is a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And at this point, I broke out that star stencil again just to fill in little gaps where I felt I needed a pop of color. So remember, stretch your stencils also. If you have stencils with small openings, use that to create accents. I'm crazy about these backgrounds and the fact that I was able to use several stencil sets that I've used in the past again, but combine them together. Because I like these backgrounds so much, I didn't want to add much else to it. So for one, I'm using the Pretty Pink Posh large Celebrate die set. It has the shadow die and the word Celebrate. There is also a coordinating foil plate available, sold separately, but if you like foiling, that's a good option. For the other card, I'm using a different Celebrate die cut, one that's smaller, from this little gift bag die set. I'll demonstrate that gift bag at the end of this video. So I'm putting both of my cards together at once. This is what my desk usually looks like, everything piled out. On the smaller card, I am using the Fancy Cake die set from Pretty Pink Posh. It's that die set that you see on the top right there. It's got a frame, little details to add to your cake, a little sentiment. I just cut the birthday cake from white cardstock and added white layered details. You could do a lot with this cake. In fact, I think it'd be fun to make a colorful cake and put some of those little sprinkles that you see there on the screen, like glued to the top of the cake, kind of scattered there. So many things you can do with this die cut, but I wanted the focus to be the background. So I just cut it from white cardstock and I'm gluing it right onto the bottom corner. And then I added the Celebrate die cut with black cardstock. So here is the completed card. Remember, you could stretch your supplies even further by doing just a inked border of candles on the inside of the card. Haven't done that yet. I plan to go back and do so. Here's a closer look at that background. I love all the color and how I was able to combine different layering stencils together in one card to get more use from them. You also can see the layered white die cut. Sometimes layered white die cuts can be an amazing addition to a card like here, or as a background, as we did earlier on the Make-A-Wish card. So here is the completed card. It's 5 by 7. I added the large Celebrate layered die cut with white and black cardstock and a sentiment strip underneath. And you can see there are also a few iridescent sequins sprinkled here and there for a bit of shine. So this card set is an excellent example of stretching your time and your supplies. Really makes the creative process more fun. Before we go, I just wanted to show you the start of another project that I'm doing with that gift bag die set that I showed you earlier. Now, I had done some inking with these stencils, the technique I just showed you, and I actually messed one up because I spilled my coffee on it. I was able to save this little piece, so I'm using it here to create the front of our gift bag. So I die cut the gift bag from this, and the die actually creates little flaps on the side, which you'll see in a moment. I'm cutting the flaps off of this one. This is just a panel that I'll glue on the front of our completed gift bag. All right, so I also used the gift bag die to cut twice from white cardstock. I'm gluing the front onto here, so we have a decorative look to it. And then all you have to do is glue the little tabs together on your 2 gift bag die cuts. Really easy to do. There are a few ways to do this. I like to fold them over and use a strong liquid adhesive so that I can wiggle it in just the right place. If you wanted to, you could use one die cut, fold those flaps over and glue it on the front of a card, and you'll have a little pocket that is excellent to put a little gift card in. All right, so I'm gluing these 2 together, gluing one side flap, and then I'll glue the other side flap and then the bottom. This is a tiny little gift bag. Again, you could glue it to the front of a card, but I plan to give this to my Pilates instructor. It's her birthday next week, so I'm going to put a little gift card for a wine shop in there because, you know, you got to balance the Pilates somehow, right? So I will add a large Celebrate die cut to the front, and I can write a little message on the back of it. I just wanted to show you this project that I have in progress. I don't always get to finish projects just like you, so I will return and finish it later. All right, if you are interested in any of the products I talk about, I do link them below in my YouTube description. I hope that you are inspired to think of ways to stretch your supplies in your time. You don't need to do multiple ways, just pick one, and it's a great way to really enjoy the crafting process. At the end here, I'll link to a couple other videos that I mentioned during this one, and I will be back soon with another video. Have a great day.